Would you love to do a cybersecurity webinar to promote your MSP, but you have big concerns? Maybe you're worried there are too many other MSPs doing webinars. Or what exactly would you say? I mean, you know your cybersecurity stuff, right? But maybe you're not convinced that you could communicate this well to an audience. Well, good news. I'm here to help. And let me tell you why prospects are actually very keen to attend any webinar that you put on. And let me give you a free cybersecurity webinar outline that any MSP can use. Yes, the world does need more webinars. And it might seem to you like every vendor in the channel is doing a webinar every single day, but that's just the view from inside the channel, from inside your MSP. To ordinary business owners and managers, the people that you want to reach, they might feel the same about the vendors in their world, but they do still have room for one more webinar on a completely different subject, and that subject is cybersecurity. And it should be your MSP that delivers it to them. Webinars are amazing. They're still a reliable and robust way to reach the right people, get them engaged in what it is that you have to say, persuade them to talk to you at the point at which they're ready to take action. As the person presenting the webinar, it enhances your reputation and your perceived authority as the local tech expert. When I speak to members of my MSP Marketing Edge about webinars and what they're thinking of running, their two biggest fears are what technology to use and what to say. Well, the first one is easy. The technology is super easy, and I'm not going to suggest a specific platform here as we all have different software preferences. But 15 minutes just firing up the Google machine will give you a very, very good idea of all of the platforms that you can choose from. Although, please don't overthink it. The simplest way to get started with a webinar is just to use Zoom. On a free plan, you can have up to 100 people for a 40-minute call. And trust me, that is more than enough to just get started to try your first few webinars. So the harder of those two questions then is what to say. And I can't write your webinar for you, as it wouldn't be authentic for you to use my words. But what I can do is give you an outline. It's the structure of the webinar, and you can fill in the gaps to produce a cybersecurity webinar that's ready to roll out right now. Swipe and adapt this cybersecurity webinar outline. Now, I'll first of all give you the too long didn't read version, and then I'll add a little bit more meat to the bones. Oh, and remember, there is a transcript of this podcast and this YouTube video on my website, mspmarketingedge.com. Just go into the navigation and look for podcasts. So we're going to look at a hook, a 3-line agenda, who you are. We're going to present the content in 3 different sections. We're going to present a social proof story, do a conclusion, next steps, Q&A, and then very finally, the follow-up. That's the TLDR, the too long didn't read version. Let's go into some more details, starting with the hook. Your opening sentence must hook them in and make them think, whoa, I'm glad I attended this, and also encourage them to stay till the end. So here's an example. 20 minutes from now, you'll be armed with 3 simple things you can do to protect your business from a cyber attack. These 3 things work for any business anywhere, and you need them. Since I started this webinar 12 seconds ago, there's been a cyber attack on another business in this town. Every 39 seconds somewhere, a business is infected with ransomware, which is another kind of malware, or they fall for a phishing attack. So let me tell you what all of these things are and how to protect your business from them. And a cool thing actually will be to have a cyber attack counter or something on the screen, and perhaps every 39 seconds or whatever it would go up by 1. I'm not quite sure how you do that, but that would certainly help you to get your point across. Next thing then is the 3-line agenda. Once you've hooked someone in, and well done for that, because that opening line is everything, it really is. Once you've hooked them in, you've convinced their heart to stay on the webinar. Now you need to give their brain some evidence that it's worth them investing the next 20 minutes of their life with you. And that's what the 3-line agenda is. So for example, here's what we're going to talk about. First, I'll explain the 3 main dangers facing your business today. Those things I just mentioned. Let's get inside the mind of the criminal. Let's explain what they're trying to get out of you and why. And let me tell you some common ways they'll try to trick you and your team. And then I'll tell you about your defenses and how they're a mixture of protection from software and things that humans must do. Finally, I'll summarize what we've been talking about and give you some quick wins to increase your protection today. I promise everything I'm going to talk about will make sense no matter what level your tech ability. And right at the end, we'll do a Q&A where I'll answer any question that you have. Feel free to take that, get that transcript off my website, rewrite that into your own words, and feel free to use that. Now, let's talk about the who you are section. This is about establishing your credibility. Give them a few lines on your background, how many businesses you work with, and also your passions. Some work ones like protecting business owners from cyber criminals and showing them how technology makes everything easier, but also don't forget to show them how relatable you are. Maybe you're a parent, maybe you're into the local sports team, maybe you volunteer in the community. Those things are important as well. The next part is your content split into 3 sections. And this is the bulk of your webinar content. You organize it into 3 sections to give it some structure and make it feel understandable and highly valuable. And trust me, it's way too easy to bore a webinar audience by talking too much. So let's say you're talking about ransomware, other malware, and phishing. Well, those are your 3 sections. That's how they could be structured, simple as that. You could spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about each one. Let me tell you why cyber criminals are interested in your business. These are their most wanted outcomes: stealing money, stealing data, creating disruption. They have 3 primary ways of doing this: ransomware, other malware, phishing. Let me show you examples of each one, and let's see if you would have spotted the telltale signs. I'll also show you how it's getting harder to detect attacks because of AI, and how the best defenses are a blend of software and humans paying attention. And here's a mix that we recommend and how we train people in a way that's fun and not boring. Next part then is your social proof story. So if you've got one, please do present a story of a real client of yours that you saved from a cyber attack. Of course, you've got to anonymize them, unless you have permission from your clients to use their story to educate other people. Now, if you don't have your own story, then just ask your MSP peers for a story you can borrow, or go onto Tech Tribe and find someone else's horror story, something like that. Just don't use one of these big business stories, as the ordinary business owners and managers that you want to reach, they find it very hard to relate to big businesses, like those massive corporations. They cannot relate to them being attacked. And don't think that you need to have huge dollar or pound numbers to get the people to pay attention to you. If a business their size has been attacked and was, let's say, down for a couple of days, that is actually 1,000 times scarier to them than a giant corporation losing $10 million. Next section is the conclusion. Here you've got to summarize what you've been talking about and then give them what you promised earlier, some quick wins to protect their business today. Now, these could be as simple as guidelines on checking emails more carefully before they click on links or download attachments. I'd be very cautious of giving them security software suggestions, though, as really you want them going through a full appraisal with you before you recommend solutions. And then you come on to the next part of the webinar, which is your next steps. And this is the call to action, the thing you want them to do off the back of attending this webinar. Now, ideally, you'd have something available they could commit to at low cost or no cost. And I believe actually that low cost works better for this than something that's free, as getting someone to pay something is an indication of true commitment. So for example, you could do like a $99 mini security audit. And this is your prospect buying a small amount of your time to look at what they're doing well and what they're doing not so well. Just make sure that a feedback consultation is built into that audit. So for their $99, they're actually buying an in-depth sales appointment with you. Yes, please. That's exactly the kind of thing we want. But as I said, be very wary of giving that away for free. The tire kickers, the time wasters will always take up that free offer, but it will be a nightmare delivering it and they won't join your business anyway as a client. If you can get someone to pay $100, $200, maybe even £300, $300, they are going to be a much higher quality prospect. And then the final section of your cybersecurity webinar is a Q&A. And you leave this till the end because a number of people will drift away during a Q&A. Some will hang around because they want to discuss the security audit or just ask you a question. And that's okay. Just make sure you answer every single question, even if it's just you and one person left at the end. The more value you give in a webinar, the better. But then we mustn't forget the follow-up. You should always phone everyone who attended your webinar but didn't buy the security audit and ask them for some feedback on the webinar. You want to get them talking about security and how they feel about it. You may get 1 or 2 extra sales from that. Some people always need a bit of time to just think about things, even if it's just spending $100. So it's also worth emailing a recording of the webinar to those people who didn't show up. To be honest, you'll only get around about 1/3 of people who registered actually turning up for the live webinar, but don't ignore the 2/3 who registered but didn't attend. With some work, there are possibly a couple of extra sales hiding in there for you. And if not, you just need to be patient because they probably will have a conversation with you at some point in the future. And that's why you need to be repeating webinars regularly, ideally as often as once a month.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.